Hello, hello, hello. Well, you know what? This is another UFC Apex card weekend. And you know what? It's not too bad, honestly. The problem with this event is essentially the top three fights. So you have Thug Rose, all kinds of questions about her that are like not fun to ask. Two true outcome fight between heavyweights Carl Williams and Justin Tafa, and then Edmund Shabazian, who's kind of in the same boat as Rose Namajunas, like arguably to a lesser extent, but also like more of an extent. You know, being like kind of a stab in the gut, but like you do got Peyton Talbot, Cameron Simon, you do have Billy Quarantillo, Yusuf Zalal. I'm a big Billy Q fan. You do have Luis Penhelo versus Fernando Padilla. That is two fighters that don't have like a really high ceiling in terms of MMA, but are super fun, stupendously fun fighters. Trey Ogden, Kurt Hallbaugh. Okay, that one sucks. Ricardo Ramos versus Julian Rosa. That'll be fun. Miles Johns, Cody Gibson. That's fun. Steve Wynn versus Yarno Aarons. Doesn't feel like a UFC level fight, but like fun. Montserrat Rendon versus Daria Zheleznikova. It's a bantamweight fight. It is what it is. Igor Severino da Silva versus Andre Lima. That's fun. And then Muhammad Usman versus McParkin. It's a heavyweight fight, but like it starts the night off. So like if I miss something, I don't feel like I've missed something. So like that's the card. And then there's a Bellator card, which I may or may not talk about. It depends on like how far into this video I get and I've run out of things to say about the card. Big news coming from the MMA circles via the antitrust. The UFC has basically gotten off kind of lightly. It's not finalized yet. The judge has to approve the settlement, but like apparently $335 million for the assorted fighters involved in the class action lawsuits, the Lee lawsuit and the Johnson lawsuit. So essentially the whole antitrust thing, probably not going to really impact the business at all. The UFC will pay out the $335 million and that'll be kind of it. Like the systemic problems will probably continue and PFL and ONE and so on will probably at some point die out much the same way as Bellator, Strikeforce, and so on. And it's a bit depressing in that regard. But some fighters got some money. So there is that. There is that bright side. And the only other thing I'm going to bring out is that can fighters please stop like posting pictures of them like trying to like fight back against baldness? Like guys, just accept it. Just shave your head. I am in your boat. I went bald in my 20s. Actually, to be clear, I'd actually like to go bald. The balding is the annoying part because I got to shave my head periodically. The idea of like being bald is actually like something to look forward to once you get to this stage. But yeah, that's what we got. Let's talk about the fights. We got Amanda Ribas versus Rose Namajunas. This is your main event. Thug Rose should win this fight, and I'm picking her here by TKO. But the big question with Thug Rose is just that like that Carla Esparza fight was so weird. And she looked better in a losing effort against Manon Fiorot. But it was kind of a question of like, okay, you're going up from 115 to 125. You do not look as big. You do not look as powerful. You do not look as physical. How is this going to go? And we have a bunch of mental questions that Carla Esparza fight just generated in our brains that will not go away until she starts like winning fights and winning them like fairly convincingly. That is the problem she's facing. This is a stylistic matchup that should work for her. Ribas is a willing but sloppy and relatively thin striker. She is kind of caught between 115 and 125. She has a hard time making 115, but at 125, she doesn't really have the physicality. Not to mention the size. She's 5'3" with a 66-inch reach. Like that's not a frame that really should be at 125. We're at 125. Thug Rose is going to be at an inch reach disadvantage, but she is 2 inches taller. So probably the longer one. The more effectively longer one, the more effective striker in the pocket, the better clinch fighter. Ribas probably the better grappler, but I don't really foresee her like really doing it. Like she's too willing of a striker. Like almost every one of her fights where she shows off like her grappling game is almost always that when she's already lost the striking game and it's become a second effort thing. Or, stuff where she like is facing somebody who is going to bring the grappling exchanges to her and she's just going to roll with it. But like if you want to strike with Amanda Ribas, she will strike with you. That's kind of the problem. And Thug Rose should probably knock her out here. She is a larger favorite than I'd be comfortable betting on at minus 210 to minus 250. Ribas plus 175 to plus 200. It could be a feel good moment. It really could, because you've got a former champion here who is trying to kind of refine herself. But Thug Rose is just such a not disappointing. That's the wrong word. Depressing fighter to deal with. That's kind of the problem. Carl Williams, Justin Tafa. This is a 2 true outcome fight. Tafa is the better striker. Williams is pretty poor at it. He's just pretty athletic, but he is a good wrestler. He will chain takedowns together. He will persist in getting takedowns. He is that rare, actually decent scrambling heavyweight, decent shot wrestling heavyweight, decent chain wrestling heavyweight that will probably just put Tafa on his back over and over and over again. I would pick him to finish him, but he doesn't finish anybody really. So at the end of the day, we're probably going to get 15 minutes of that and Williams by decision. Does mean that Tafa is going to have the opportunity to land a hot one. Like I said, Williams is a bad defensive striker, not a particularly good offensive striker. He's just athletic. And that does mean that the opening is going to be there throughout the fight for Tafa to just land an uppercut, land a big knee, land a big hook, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of opportunities there, but it's probably just going to be the rinse cycle of Carl Williams' wrestling. He is the minus 190 to minus 200 favorite. Tafa plus 154 to plus 160. If you can get odds on Tafa, but like long odds on Tafa by TKO or Williams by decision, I'd go with that probably. Also, the usual spam here about betting. This is MMA. It is chaotic. Making money off of MMA betting is legitimately hard. And the problem here is that at the end of the day, it's a little bit too chaotic to actually, make great money off of. So, spice up your life, add a little betting, but don't expect not to lose the money. There you go. That's what it is. Edmund Shabazian, AJ Dobson. I talked about this fight. This is kind of the same thing with the Thug Rose thing, but with Edmund Shabazian. Shabazian, on paper, should win this fight. He's the better athlete. He's the better striker. He's the better wrestler. He's the better grappler. He is better on any kind of like actual comparison of physicality or technicality that you care to get into with AJ Dobson. The problem is that he is a complete frontrunner bully. Every time he has faced real problems in his career, he has kind of had a lot. Not every time, I suppose. Like he did beat, I think it was Brad Tavares. Yeah, he beat Tavares quickly. It was the Darren Stewart fight I'm thinking of, where he did legitimately face pushback and went to a split decision. But like aside from that, it was finishing people in the first round. Charles Byrd, Jack Marshman, Brad Tavares, Antonio Jones. And then he got to Derek Brunson, lost to Derek Brunson. No shame in that. Lost to Jack Hermanson. No shame in that. Lost to Nasruddin Imavov. No shame in that. Knocked out Delcha Lungiambula in a fight that, I don't know, it's best kind of forgotten because it didn't really answer any of the questions. And then lost to Anthony Hernandez. And that's the problem, is that, Dodson, for all of his failings, essentially, he is very, very tough. He is durable. He doesn't give up easy submissions. He doesn't get knocked out. He just tends to be a little bit too low output, a little bit too willing to accept another person's fight to actually win at a UFC level. And that's largely why he doesn't. He did beat Tafan in Chukwe, but that's about it. And that does really make me wonder, like, does Shabazian just like combust after a while? I'm gonna take him by decision. I'm gonna take him to have a performance that maybe finally convinces me that Edmund Shabazian is back and is someone who's not just going to be that guy who falls apart. He's only 26. He's 6'2", 75-inch reach. He's got good size, great athleticism for 185. This is a division of very, very shallow games that won't generally expose his shallowness. He just has to keep it together and do his thing. I've got him by decision, like I said, just because Dodson's very, very hard to finish. Minus 190 to minus 215 is the odds on Shabazian. Dodson plus 160 to plus 170. That seems about right. Peyton Talbot, Cameron Simon, MSP. I am much more interested for this fight because obviously these are two very good prospects. Peyton Talbot is undefeated, has done his thing, has looked very impressive as a striker. He's got a lot of physicality to base on things. His first layer striking, very, very good. He could scramble a little bit, even if his grappling is a bit meh. And the same can be said for Cameron Simon, except for Simon lost. He had his C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez moment where he fought somebody with a complete game and the mental toughness to see his physicality and fight through it. And he lost. Now, can he be that for Peyton Talbot? That's kind of the question. The problem here really is that I don't trust either gym. Talbot is at, I am blanking on the name of the gym and I didn't write it down. That was silly on me. It's something Reno. It's like Combat Club Reno. Reno Academy of Combat. There you go. And then Cameron Simon's at the same gym as fellow South African Dricus Du Plessis, Team CIT. And I don't trust either of those gyms because in Talbot's case, with the Reno Combat Academy of Combat, they just don't have anybody else. Like it's not that they failed. It's that there's just no other example of what they do in terms of developing a fighter. And they seem to have produced a kid who is really, really athletic, but like that's not the question when it comes to developing a good fighter. It's, can they give him depth? Can they give him a skill base that will actually translate to wins when he faces guys of a similar athletic profile or even a close athletic profile? And his biggest win is like Nick Aguirre, who's bad. Very bad. Like Nick Aguirre is so bad that I didn't understand why he got signed. So that win just doesn't really prove a lot. So I don't know. I guess I got to go with Talbot. With Cameron Simon, the problem is like the other example of a fighter from his gym is Dricus Du Plessis. And like Dricus's like entire game is being tough, physical, and coming up with some creative solutions as a fight goes on. But like with an athletic ceiling that is way above everyone else. Like that's the problem, is this is bantamweight. I don't think a Dricus Du Plessis 135 version really is actually successful. So I've got Talbot by decision, but like my hopes for this fight are that I learn about both guys, that I see a deeper side to Simon's game and a less physically reliant side, because I just don't think his physicality will take him that far. And with Talbot, I just want to see things that I haven't seen before. Hopefully we get that. And hopefully this is a classic. Talbot is the favorite at minus 145 to minus 155. Simon is the plus 118 to plus 125 underdog. Billy Quarantillo versus Yusuf Zalal. This is a weird fight because I'm used to essentially picking Billy Quarantillo to either get just blown out on a physical level or to face off with a guy who's way more physical than him but will drown the longer the fight goes in, because Billy Quarantillo weaponizes his cardio and his scrappiness and his durability into this way of making people fade late and then take advantage of them. And like neither of those is Yusuf Zalal. Zalal got cut from the UFC, frankly, for not being a high enough impact fighter. Like his octane, his ability, his physicality is just not UFC level. But like he does try really, really, really hard. Like he kind of is Billy Quarantillo to a certain degree, just not as good. And that's going to be weird to watch someone try to Billy Quarantillo, and for Billy Quarantillo to try to outlast Yusuf Zalal. That's going to be very, very weird. But like when it comes down to it, Quarantillo is the better technical striker, in my opinion. He probably is the guy I just trust more to make the right decisions and adjustments as the fight goes on. Zalal is kind of flat. He comes out with an idea in like all of his fights, and when it doesn't work, he doesn't really seem to transition to the B plan, the C plan, so on. Whereas I have absolute faith in Quarantillo to do that. And like I said at the top of this, Zalal is not the athlete that usually can just melt Quarantillo. He's not Edson Barboza. He's not let's see here. He's not Edson Barboza. He's not Shane Burgos. He's not even Gavin Tucker. That is, I think, essentially the problem for him here. So I've got Billy Quarantillo to a decision, and he is the favorite minus 130 to minus 141. Zalal plus 110 to plus 120. That is bizarrely close for a guy who is Tapology's number 19 145er in the world in Quarantillo, and somebody who is 304th at featherweight in Yusuf Zalal. That is very weird, but I do get it. It's ironically not the standard fight that Quarantillo wins and not the standard fight that Quarantillo loses. It's this weird kind of third type that isn't really, we really haven't seen. Really, there's like, I guess, elements of the Damon Jackson fight, but not really. Anyways, Luis Penuelo, I'm sorry, I am bad at Spanish names. I'm sorry. And Fernando Padilla are going to go head to head at 145. These two are very, very, very similar in the sense that they are all aggression. They are guys who are used to having a range advantage and a frame advantage on their opponents. They're used to having just a general size advantage because Padilla is 6'1", 76-inch reach, and Penuelo is 5'10", 69.5-inch reach. So like they're big. Well, 69.5-inch reach is actually not big for 5'10", but like it is still fairly long for featherweight. Padilla is just massive. And there is absolutely no defense to what they do. Like it's height insulation, and that is it. And chin. And the idea that like if you hit me, I'm going to hit you more times and harder, and you're not going to like it. That is kind of their ideas. And the problem for Penuelo is he has fought guys on the regional scene and then even into the contender series who just shut down after that point. They looked incredibly unhappy and incredibly uncomfortable being in there with him. And also smaller, let's be honest. All outsized. Padilla's got the size, the power, the durability, and the crazy to go head to head with him in terms of the aggression. And that is why I've got to take Padilla by TKO. Like, I don't think Luis has actually lost. Is he undefeated? Or does he have like one loss or something? He does have one loss. What is it to? Split decision against Mike Davidson at Shudo. Mike Davidson at Shudo. That's a Brazilian name. What the heck? So he's never been finished before. So, I mean, I guess there is the argument that like he's just durable, that he's going to be just durable enough to actually take on what Padilla is going to throw at him. But I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't pick it. Padilla by TKO. He's minus 165 to minus 174. Penuelo is plus 132 to plus 140. I mean, I'm always happy to see another Peruvian fighter in the UFC because I like seeing fighters from countries that haven't historically produced MMA talent. But it really does feel like this is just a guy who comes from a scene where he is cutting more weight. He is the bigger guy. He is the more powerful guy. And when he runs into somebody who is not going to be impressed by that, he is going to lose. And I think this is that moment. Trey Ogden versus Kurt Hollabaugh. I am going with Trey Ogden. I don't like this fight. Because I think it's a waste of Hollabaugh. Hollabaugh is a 37-year-old guy. Just let him go out there and do exciting things. Let this man have exciting action fights. And Ogden is the antithesis to an action fight. He likes to slow things down. He likes to neutralize things. And the only people who have been able to stop him from doing that are people like Ignacio Bahamondes, who's just a giant. And then like people like Jordan Leavitt, Nick Brown, Thomas Gifford, who not so much Thomas Gifford, but can like pursue a constant wrestling threat at medium to close range that Ogden's not comfortable dealing with. And in Gifford's case, catching him in guillotine because Gifford does that. Hollabaugh does have like a little bit of Thomas Gifford in him in that he does have some opportunistic submissions and so on. But like, you bring him the grappling game for him to actually make that happen. And Ogden doesn't really do that. He abuses the fact that he has a 5'11", 72-inch frame. Granted, Hollowball is longer and the same height, but still Hollowball doesn't really fight from range that well. He's a big man on power hooks and kind of punching into the mid-range area. So I just have to think this is going to be kind of dull. But I mean, hopefully Hollowball can bring out a good fight about it. But I have no good feelings about it. There's just Hollowball just doesn't have the persistent takedown threats. He doesn't have the deft technician aspect that really befuddles Ogden, and he's not that fast or explosive. He just hits hard. Like it's not a speed, it's not a sudden thing. It's who, if he does hit you, it is not pleasant, but you do see it coming. Odds wise, Ogden minus 148 to minus 158. Hollowball plus 123 to plus 125. You do not get closer than that in terms of range. Ricardo Ramos versus Julian Erosa. Man, I mean, Ramos should win this fight really, really easily, and I'm picking him to do it because on paper, the dude has good striking skills, excellent grappling skills, and is a phenomenal physical presence. He just really, honestly should be a tremendously good fighter. But it's a start and stop thing. He'll lose fights that he shouldn't lose. He makes terrible decisions, both as a striker and a grappler. He'll go too aggressive, let control get away from him, or end up in trouble himself. He loves to spin as a striker, loves the spinning elbow, and that can get him into trouble because when it doesn't land, he's completely out of position and you can just wail on him. Erosa doesn't really have the takedown defense to really handle this because his takedown defense is almost entirely successful takedowns. People who have gone for takedowns against him have either beaten him or been Marcin Roshek. Essentially, Ramos can take him down. Ramos will out grapple him. If it does go to the ground, he may do some incredibly stupid things. Erosa's not tappable, really. He's actually never been on tap. He's never been tapped out. 0 submission losses. There you go. And on paper, Ramos's actual submission wins are all kind of crap. They're not necessarily good fighters or good grapplers. So I'll go with Ramos by decision. I'm ready for this to be chaotic, possibly fun, but possibly also infinitely frustrating as two guys who, in a lot of ways, should be better than they are, go head to head. Miles Johns versus Cody Gibson. I just have to go with Miles Johns. Cody Gibson was on Tough 31, aka the Redemption season, for a reason. It's because, well, he does have a 5'10" frame for 135, 71 inches. That's insane. That's ridiculous. He's 3 inches taller, 5 inches longer than Miles Johns. He's just not very overpowering. He's tough, he's game, he's scrappy. I have a lot of nice things to say about him. A lot of nice things to say about him. But I don't think that adds to wins against UFC level athletes, which Miles Johns is. He's predictable. He's shallow, technically speaking, but my guy is fast. He is strong. He is explosive. He is powerful. He hits very, very hard. That shallow game does work for him. He can wrestle. I have to take him here to just be too physically imposing for Cody Gibson, even though the height and reach is very much in Gibson's favor. I've got Johns by decision. There's nothing he does that catches people off guard. And Gibson, like I said, is very, very tough. He is the $2 steak. So, yeah, I can't see him getting finished. But decision, Johns is a minus 142 to minus 150 favorite. Gibson plus 112 to plus 125. That's a little close. Steve Wynn versus Yarno Aarons. There's only one thing that Aarons really brings to the table here that might be a problem, is that Wynn is used to having a significant reach advantage. He's always got a 2+ reach advantage, and this is a 5'11", 73 inches versus 5'11", 73 inches fight at 145. So that's the one question, but Wynn is a pretty sound striker, pretty strong volume fighter, throws a lot, throws in combination, throws accurately, varies things up. He will change his targets. He will change his angles. He will do all the things that you look for in a guy who's going to be just a pace fighter. And that's why I got to take him, because Yarno Aarons has no pace. He has a very, very weird grab bag of skills that I am not entirely certain how they came about. Like, I don't know what kind of coaching approach leads to a fighter like Yarno Aarons. I really don't. I honestly don't. There's like some decent physical things there. He's durable. He's got some power, some speed, whatever. But like, he's not a striker really. He's not a grappler really. He's just very, very incomplete in both regards, and very slow paced. So yeah, literally, I just see Win running away with the fight. Like, being the guy who let's consult UFC stats here real quick, because this is going to be alarming, and I don't know why I don't have UFC stats up right now, because I'm dumb. I swear, I don't mean to do this. Steve Wynn has landed 103 significant strikes against AJ Cunningham, 128 significant strikes against Theo. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this name. Ryayang on the Contender Series. And his other Contender Series fight, a loss to Elon Cruz, was an insane pace, where he got hit 132 times and hit Elon Cruz 92 times in a loss. And if you look at Yarno Aarons, he's landed 50 combined strikes in his 2 UFC fights. That's a problem. When you're facing a guy who's going to outland you 2-1, well, 4-1 technically, based on his usual pace. That is not good. You need to be able to stop that man in order to beat him, and I don't think Aarons can. So, yeah, Steve Wynn, decision, minus 165 to minus 205. Aarons plus 135 to plus 158. Women's bantamweight fought Montserrat Rendon versus Daria Zheleznikova. I am going with Rendon. The reason is quite simple. As much as I would love to see Rendon turn into like a great fighter, she's 35. She just came to the sport a little bit too late. She started fighting at 31 years old, at least in terms of competitively. And she has kind of like a dull blanket grappling style, but like, she is strong. She is durable, it seems. She is composed, and she has a pretty good takedown game. Like, granted, a lot of it is kind of power based, but like, that's also women's bantamweight in a general sense. It's just really a shame that she started at 31. She's not a good striker or anything, but she is a comfortable, composed striker. So there's no like horrible reactions like I talked about with Chelsea Chandler last week. So there is that. And then with Zheleznikova, she is a decent 135 prospect. It's as good as it gets. MMA Factory Association, which is a good gym, albeit with crud wrestling training and a really, 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 really bad management system that exploits its fighters horrendously. Her big issue, though, is that realistically speaking, there are 2 people she's fought that were bantamweight sized in her career. She lost to Melissa Dixon, now Melissa Mullins, and she beat a 43-year-old Marie Loiseau quite badly. But like, Loiseau is also someone who's lost badly to like every notable fighter she's fought, including like Teresa Bleda, who's a flyweight. So like, she had the size of a 135er, but like none of the other fundamentals. Her best win, Zheleznikova I'm talking about, was like Liana Jojua, the Georgian fighter who fought in the UFC for like a hot second and did pretty badly outside of, I think, arm barring Diana Belbitsa. She's too small for 135. She's probably too small for 125. She got bullied there repetitively. She's 5'4", and that's your best win. Zhelezhnikova's game functions when it's kind of doing everything. She's a do-all kind of fighter. She wants to put on a decent pace kickboxing game on you, but she wants the option to wrestle with you and control you on top, which means that she doesn't really avoid the clinch the way that you should against Rendon, who will probably get her down at some point and just control her. Like, I foresee like kind of an ugly minute to maybe each round, boom, 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 where Zhelezhnikova's better striking kind of shows off, but then it goes to the ground. She gets basically just crushed with top pressure, and eventually that will tell on the judges' scorecards. Zhelezhnikova is the favorite at minus 200, minus 225. Rendon plus 154 to plus 180. That is probably my underdog bet for the card. I don't think I'm picking any other underdogs, am I? Scrolling. Yeah, I'm not picking any other underdogs on the card, so like, yep, it's gonna be heavily my bet. So depending on how that fight goes, will probably impact how happy I am in the recap. Igor Severino da Silva versus Andre Lima. I am going with Andre Lima here, but like these are both exciting guys. My problem with Severino is just that he's very, very raw. Like he's 20 years old, doesn't have the greatest defensive reactions in the world. He's got plenty of time to fix that. Plenty of time. He's got a massive frame. And the guys he's fought have been just big brothered by him. Like when he shows off his wrestling in those fights, they're just smaller dudes that he can overpower. And even in the striking stints, he's taller, he's longer. He's going to be 2 inches longer than Lima, so he does have that going for him. But Lima's the better kicker of the two, and certainly is a sniper at range. So my questions just with Severino are kind of like, all right, you have some exciting physicality. You seemingly also like I think there's depth there. I think there's depth to his offense, honestly. Like I don't think he's like an amazingly raw fighter. We have had raw recently coming out the Dana White Contender Series, but there's just a little bit I need it tested before I'm on the hype train. And Andre Lima is a pretty competent kickboxer. He has a solid skill set there. He's a little bit low pace for flyweight, which I do worry about. His ideal, what he wants, is this just range, kind of you go, I successfully defend, you don't successfully defend. Loves the body kick. Loves it. He would marry the body kick if he could. And I do wonder if things get chaotic or a little bit higher paced or a little bit messy, if that holds up. I'd love to be wrong, but I'll take Lima to be the cleaner striker, the more developed fighter, and pick up the decision here. He is the favorite, minus 175 to minus 190. Severino plus 143 to plus 160. Looking forward to the fight. These are two legitimately good flyweight prospects that I think 5 years from now are going to be ranked fighters. I do really feel that. Muhammad Usman versus Mick Parkin is a depressing fight because I really, really, really want to take Parkin, and I'm going to. I'm picking Parkin by decision. Because Usman is awkward. Muhammad Usman is this guy who is clearly incredibly athletic, but seems to have really unimpressive coordination, kind of like Natan Levy. He's super stiff in his striking defense. He's predictable, but has variable timing as a striker. He hits hard. He's fast, power, durable, all these hallmarks of a heavyweight. But he's just the most unconvincing game of all time. And with Mick Parkin, he had that great performance against Jamal Pogues, where I was like, you know what, I'm excited about this guy. I was a little worried coming in that he had fought largely kind of cans. But Pogues, for all of his flaws, is not a bad fighter. And he went out there and he looked really good. And then his last fight against Kyle Magalesh, I think that's his name. The Canadian Brazilian dude that he fought, which sounds really great when I say it that way. Kyle Machado, there you go. Okay, Kyle Machado, who fights out of Vancouver, British Columbia, but obviously very, very Brazilian. That fight was just sad. I still don't really understand how Parkin won it. I'm going to chalk that up to flash in the pan, just kind of an ugly, ugly fight, and that he'll come out here and he'll look more like the guy who outpaced, outstruck, and just lit Jamal Pogues up. That's the hope. Parkin by decision. Parkin's a minus 145 to minus 158 favorite. Usman plus 120 to plus 125. How are we doing on time here? We're under 40 minutes. All right, let's go. Let's have a look at the Bellator card. Let's do this real quick. Bellator coming to you from Belfast, Northern Ireland, which means a fair amount of UK and Irish town, of course, on the card. Corey Anderson versus Carl Moore is your main event. You got to go with Corey Anderson. Don't get me wrong, Carl Moore is not a bad fighter by any means. 6'3", 75-inch reach, 205 pounder. Has beaten the likes of Alex Police and a rear naked choke win over Carl Albrechtsen. That is not nothing. I want to be clear on that. Not nothing. Those are good wins. But Corey Anderson is a tremendous step up from that level of opposition. He is a stud wrestler. He is very athletic. He is probably the second best 205er outside of the UFC. Like, it's Vadim Nemkov and then him, and I'm picking him to beat basically anyone that's not Vadim Nemkov. And to be honest, I might even pick him to beat Vadim Nemkov because that first fight he had with Nemkov was very impressive. Just the follow-up second one was not. Patricio Pitbull versus Jeremy Kennedy. I can't pick Jeremy Kennedy beat Pitbull. I just can't. It might be the smart move because Pitbull is very much on the decline. 36 years old. He has a style that doesn't age particularly well. He got knocked out by Suzuki in Ryzen. He lost to Sergio Pettis in Bellator at 135. The decline it's here. It's here. But I can't pick Jeremy Kennedy's kind of boring clinch control, top control grappling game to get that done. He's too uncreative. He's too uncreative. I'm going with that. I'm going with Pitbull by TKO at some point. Fabian Edwards versus Aaron Jeffrey. Got to go with Fabian Edwards. I'm not a believer in Fabian Edwards. I've been picking against him like repetitively. I picked Gegard Mousasi to beat him. I think I might have even picked Charlie Ward to beat him and Lyoto Machida. That's not good, but he's reasonably high level athlete, well put together game. He is Leon Edwards' brother, of course, and Aaron Jeffrey, who I know people who trained with him, just not that good. Although he did beat Dalton Ross the last time out, and that was very, very impressive. And he did beat Austin Vanderford, who beat, Fabian Edwards. So, still, I don't know. He was beaten fairly easily by Kai Bahio, Brennan Allen, John Salter. I just think Fabian Edwards is going to be too powerful, too physical for him. Probably pick up a decision win here. Tim Wilde versus Manuel Souza. I do not know Manuel Souza all that well at all. I see a split decision win on PFL Challenger Series. I see some decent wins. Mario Chalet, but I don't really know him. I'm gonna have to go with a do not pick. James Gallagher versus Leandro Higo. Leandro Higo has a habit of spoiling some fun. I will say that much. Beating, Darian Caldwell in 2021 during the Caldwell fall down. Would be an example of that. But I do have to go with James Gallagher. I'm not a huge fan of Gallagher. He's a little too one-trick pony, like guillotine choke, rear naked choke guy. And there's just not really a lot else to him. But like his losses are still to Ricky Bandeja and Patchy Mix. They're pretty good. This feels more like the James Gonzalez fight or even the Roman Salazar fight. So I will go with Gallagher, but I don't know. I'm kind of rooting against him just because he seems to be high on his own supply. Tofik Mustafayev versus Alfie Davis, going with Tofik. Kieran Clark versus Darius Mafi. I'm going with Kieran Clark. Nathan Kelly actually looks pretty good. He's fighting Vikas Singh Ruhil. I'm going to go with Nathan Kelly. And then the rest of these are really quite filler. Those are my Bellator picks. I'm really not interested in what Bellator is doing right now because it's just a dead promotion. Like, frankly, the guys should just be in PFL doing their thing. But it is what it is. Check the description down below for links to my social medias, my MMA stuff, and my video game stuff. Check out the Discord server, please. We got fights on there with the Fight Simulator, and it's fun. I'll be running the Fight Simulator, not the Bloody Mania card tomorrow. So There will be fresh, bloody fun from the beaches of Costa Rica. No, I'm not running it. I'm running Pardon me. I'm running the career mode tomorrow. I'm very bad today about remembering stuff. I apologize. All right. I'll see you after the fights on Sunday. Hopefully, if things get in the way, then maybe Monday night.